funny.
Tim,
Hey, this is hilarious. We just deleted an essential 30 minutes of my life that I got trapped on a Zoom call that was being recorded with my knowledge, definitely, but not with not with any purpose other than I don't know, a glitch. I didn't have my own record button. They don't give me my own record button anymore. That's how bad I've been. Good. Good. So,
has Andy been coming out?
who?
Andy, he's a new member with his wife. You saw him with me a couple of times. Lives in Huntington, and again, um, Andy doesn't ring a bell.
Andy might ring lots of bells, but right now he's the last person on my mind. So
Okay.
sorry,
I'm just
but
curious. I'm just
but the
curious.
next time I run into Andy, I'll have a little
Well,
story.
I'm going to probably call him this evening to say hi.
Don't
I get
forget
it.
we're being recorded, so don't leave any
Oh,
incriminating
no,
phone
oh,
numbers or anything.
you got it.
Now, here's the thing. This is very interesting because I ran out to get a couple more supplies for this cooking thing demo we're going to do. And then Darcy let me know that she was starting the Zoom, and I came rushing home, and I haven't put anything away, which I'm not going to. Uh, but the point of that is that we're still early and we're recording. Oh, I know what it was. I didn't get a chance to uh, to print my own final exam. So I was going to have everybody put all their notes away and to give this final exam while we're cooking. But now I've decided that you're going to give me the final exam because I don't have a copy of it. So we're going to do it all together, do the final exam. Hopefully somebody will have a copy of that. And if they don't, well, I suppose I could somehow print a copy for myself here, but we'll see how that goes. Or how would I do that? Let me see.
Someone could open up the email and click on the link because it's final exam copy
That's all I have to do is. Oh
it's
no, hold
included
on a
in the
second.
email
I
I
can
sent.
do. I go to my email, and then I go down and final exam. Here's a copy, and I file print. That was pretty easy. I just, I always get afraid that no, I save it. I'm gonna see more. Where's my printer? Here it is. And print. Okay, now I do have a copy. It's almost like I could memorize the thing, but it would be good to have it, I suppose. Printing, yep, finished, good. Now I just have to get back to you, which is right. Cornell online, no, Zoom. I know where I am. There I am. Good. Hey, look at me. I part of that when I was early. Oops, what happened? What happened to me? I disappeared. Exit. What happened to me? Uh-oh. What did I just do? I've lost my screen. Hold on. Zoom, Cornell. Uh-oh. Shit. Zoom. There I am.
Are you still on?
I'm still there, right? Everybody there?
Yep, I see you. I hear
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the waiting room? I don't know why I didn't have a waiting room, but I just saw that said something.
For some reason, I'm not getting. Okay. So we got some. We're still waiting for a couple more minutes. Oh, we got 5 minutes. Gosh.
Hey guys.
Bye. Kimmy
Hi.
saying goodbye.
I'm going off. I'm leaving him to his first cooking show. And have fun, honey.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Okay.
I could take a picture of you. Hold on.
I'm looking for my, oh, view full screen. I did this weird thing with my Zoom and I lost my full screen and I couldn't find anybody. And now we're all back to normal.
Good.
Right. But this part that we just deleted, see, we started recording maybe a half an hour ago, and then we just deleted all of that, me rambling to myself. I was alone in front of here in the kitchen all alone. And one of the things I was saying was what a Luddite I am. I mean, I'm really not part of the modern age. So doing this, and the modern age, I have to say, is pretty intriguing because here we are. We're going to take the final exam in my kitchen while I do my first ever cooking demonstration. And, you know, we've kind of been talking about doing this forever, ever. And here it is, the holidays, what a perfect time for, and by the way, I wouldn't do any of this stuff if Darcy didn't say, hey, are you doing your final exam? Oh, well, it's recorded, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm so glad that she gets me off of my winter chair and doing this. So.
Marcy.
Are you going or you going to yoga?
You're so interesting.
No. Okay. So here's the scoop. Oh, could you do me a favor since you refused to leave? Could you go get that printout of my final exam? See, I have an administrative assistant right here in my own home. And I have all of you right here in my own home. And we are 4 minutes from live, and then everybody's gonna just have to miss out on all the fun. Here it is.
I think you're gonna need glasses.
No, I don't.
I should go.
No, you know what's, I don't need glasses because here's why. Here's the final exam. This is the final exam that I probably wrote in 2001.
23 years old.
What's that?
23 years old.
Well, we're into our 25th year of SPAT, and that whole time that we've been doing SPAT, we have always had intensive lectures about the material, and every year, you know, I think we were much more intense at the beginning because it was 11 months, 3 times a month. I really had the lecture thing, like that was back when I was young and probably trying to escape a lot of home life. Now I'm not like that. But you know, the amount of information that the SPAT members have gotten over the years is really astounding. I was just thinking about it because, you know, I went to grad school for this stuff, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating material, but it can be taught to anybody if tailored correctly. So, you know, even this final exam, when I wrote it, I was thinking of what it was like to be a TA or an adjunct professor. I was an adjunct professor at Dowling in aquaculture. And I thought I was being, you know, really kind of understanding to these students, but they failed everything. I thought it was pretty easy, but it turns out it really wasn't at all. Willie Bobo's in the room. Look, now we got people that want to learn how to make an oyster stew. Oh, could
That's
you do
exactly why I'm here. Can
do
you
me
hear
one other favor?
Okay.
Oh, hold
I'm the
on.
assistant here. I normally
Where's
would.
Kimmy? Hi, Kimmy.
Hi, guys. I have.
How are you?
Oh, wait.
This
Go
one.
and get the
the
oysters and the
oysters?
milk that are
Yeah.
on the back porch. Because it's winter, you can use the spare refrigerator, which is right outside the front kitchen door. And then you don't have to, right?
Here you go, though.
You don't keep them on ice, keep it out there and go.
Well, I mean, what happened was that I don't take a whole lot of things seriously anymore. I do take SPAT seriously. So when I got kind of talked into this, oh geez, there goes milk all over my final exam. when I got not talked into, when it was what wisely suggested that we do a final exam and a kind of a holiday hello and how's everybody doing, it did seem like a perfect time to make an oyster stew. And I had made one at the Marine Christmas party, and I don't know if it was a big hit. I liked it, and it served like a lot of people. It was a big chowder. So we're going to make a big chowder. I get to be the recipient of the big chowder, but I'm just going to show you what I did because it's so remarkably simple that you can actually do the final exam and make an oyster stew all within, oyster stew. If you've been to the Grand Central Oyster Bar and you order an oyster stew, I'm pretty sure they make it kind of like you make a latte. They make it one serving at a time because it's simple and so quick. It's basically like you take an oyster with the liqueur, you add a little cream, some cracked pepper, heat it up in a little thing and serve it. And you're kind of done. That's a traditional oyster stew. So I'm not going to do, I'll go through kind of that traditional oyster stew, but I'm going to make an oyster chowder. And the reason why is two reasons. One is it always stretches the soup out so that if you make an oyster stew for two, you can do that with, a dozen oysters, some very little ingredients. You just bing, 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 and you've got oyster stew for two. Or you can do what I do at home in the winter is make a big vat of oyster chowder. And then you have it. I know this sounds a little weird, but we basically live on it for 4 or 5 days. It's just that's
Count me in. Count me in on that one.
And it's fine because it's really every time I eat it, I'm astounded. Not that I made it, but that's how good it is, and it's so simple. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do the final, and we're going to open up any kind of conversation that anyone. I hope people that came out to Celebration had fun. It was, I thought, a smashing success. It was all crazy busy on Saturday, and it was a good time had by all. And
How was Sunday out there?
it was quiet, but we had a lot. What's interesting is so that was the 13th annual celebration, and it was the first year that we actually used every single piece of shellfish, and it was a lot. So it was almost 4,000 pieces. And that I was kind of shocked at how many how many shellfish. And so I guess every time I went into Ian's, you couldn't walk in the place. So hopefully
that was great. Yeah,
restaurants had it. So that's that. Okay, so now here's what we're going to do. I think this is the format. Normally, I was going to tell everybody, okay, we're taking the final exam, which, by the way, obviously doesn't count for anything. You'll never get any kind of certificate out of this thing, unless you want it. I could fabricate them very quickly. I'm sure if you want them. If you were a student trying to get into college, we'd take care of that right away. So here's what I thought we'd do. I was going to say, okay, everybody put your notes away. We're going to blah, 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 blah. And, after doing this for 25 years, if I did it cold, everybody always failed everything. There's not, and this is what I consider to be the reason why I made this final the way I made it is it kind of covers all of the material throughout the year. So what we used to do in the grand old days, and by the way, this is all recorded on our website. So all of these archival lectures that we used to do every year are all recorded now. So they're all available. I should do a new series. We'll probably do next year. We'll do for our 25th year, we'll do a fresh whole cycle of the lectures, because it would always go like this. January was algae culture. February was broodstock conditioning and spawning. What comes after February? March would be larval rearing. April would be setting. May would be the nursery systems. And then finally in June would be configuring the garden. And then July would be something else, like maybe the oysters of France or something, or scallops or something like that. And we would do it that way until we got to November and we do the final exam. And the final exam would have covered all the lectures throughout the year. So we'll probably do that. I think that would be good to have a whole new set of those for the 25th anniversary. So here's what I want to do. I want to cook and do the final at the same time. So we could do this a couple ways. You can ask me the question and we can discuss it as I am showing you what I'm cooking, or I could show you something cooking and then we do a question. So, let's try it this way. Here we go. We'll do it this way. I will throw out the first question. We'll talk for a little while, then we'll do some cooking. All of the algae grown at Cornell Cooperative Extension must be local species so as not to introduce non-native varieties to the water. True or false? So you think about that and let's have a vote. How many say that that's true?
True.
True,
Mike.
true. Bunch of trues. Okay, how many we got, how many people we got here so far? We got 8 people. Okay, good. So, true, how many people say that's false? No falses, all true. You're all a bunch of bleeding heart liberals, damn it.
Oh, no.
Okay. No, you're not. Okay. Well, there is I think there might be one species of algae that we grow that is a local species, maybe. And that would be a Chaetoceros, a diatom Chaetoceros. So all of the species we grow at the Marine Center for our aquaculture are non-native. As a matter of fact, T-iso, which is Tahitian Isochrysis galbana, is clearly not from around here. It's from Tahiti. Or the clone was kind of isolated and they call it Tahitian Isochrysis. It's Isochrysis.
So we were all wrong. So we were all wrong.
Yeah, well, if you all said true, you see, you didn't, you got the final exam, but you really didn't want to actually see if you could answer any of the questions, which is par for the course. I wouldn't have either. As a matter of fact, I just printed out the thing 5 minutes ago, but I happen to know the material like way too much, or enough. But basically we have, and you know, if anyone wants to get into algae culture, we have a great algae team. So it's headed off by Charles Peck. And I was there today just getting some stuff for tonight. And the algae room is doing great. He started conditioning oysters yesterday. And so it's really exciting. And we have a team, but you know, anyone who wants to learn algae culture for the algae that we use is certainly welcome to join that team. And we just got some new stock cultures from the Milford lab. So even they who have been growing it for a while are starting from some fresh cultures. And we ordered it up. It's like, give us a new, hey, Gary, give us a new ISO, give us a new Tetraselmis striata clone plat P, give us a diatom, maybe Keat B or something. And I think we asked for, and a high test 1-day larval food. So we got Pavlova CCMP 609. Now, what are those? Well, they're all in the lecture and it's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of different algae you can choose from. And Milford Lab, I think, has like 200 of them on tap. So you can kind of tailor the algae to what you're doing and what you're growing. In our case, oysters from egg. So that was in the first algae lecture. If you want to look at it online, there's a bunch of algae lectures, we will, I think in January. Wow, that January is like tomorrow.
So Kim,
Yeah.
obviously oysters do fine in the local environment. You choose to not use local
No,
algae.
no. Good question. And let me clarify something. Okay. That question is geared towards algae we use in the shellfish hatchery. Okay.
Yeah.
In the shellfish hatchery, you're growing shellfish from an egg. And so you're feeding them their food source, which is unicellular microalgae. But there is no, you're doing this in January and February and March and April. Well, March and April, there's probably good local algae in the water, but it's still cold. There's not a lot of algae out in the water. There's diatoms come in, I think, first. They're more cold water. So Ketoceros will come in when we wouldn't want to go swimming. But the local algae are not used for larval culture, but they're used 100% for nursery culture, where we don't use any of the algae we grow for nursery culture. So that's a hatchery nursery thing.
Because if we left it to nature, it would be after March before we had the spat. So
if we left it to nature, then spawns would be happening in like June. So, in order to get a batch of actual seed in February is like gold, because it's so far ahead of the game that when the spring bloom does come up, that would get shellfish ready for spawning and whatnot. There's already new seed, new spat that can use that dynamic spring algae bloom. And that's why we've been getting literally 10-month-old to eat oysters. I've got some here. Oh, look at all these props. I also have this camera that I can disengage.
Nice size, very nice.
Well, no, you're seeing, actually, that's funny. Mike, you're so funny. God, you are the funniest guy. You are the funniest. Mike Mearless gets an award for the funniest guy at
Thank you.
Now
And
look,
Bill, hi, Bill.
hey,
look,
what's up,
now-
Mike?
look at this. So it looked big maybe at the camera, but this actually,
Yes, it's not as big, yes.
well, hold on, where did I put it?
Okay, now we're talking. Yes. So
Okay,
where is
so-
it? This is one of yours on the left?
Everything is mine. I'm in my own house. Look at this. Here's very interesting. Look at this oyster. I bend it this way.
Beautiful.
Watch this.
Yes. Twice the size, more. Yes,
So
lovely.
this right here, by the way, would be called an annual ring. At one point, this is where winter was. When the oyster, here's another one. That's an annual, maybe another one, maybe another one.
How old is this?
It's at least a year old. I don't know. Maybe
More,
maybe
come on, that has to be.
you see, with a clam, stay with me for a second. With a clam, you can actually age a clam to the day with certain sectioning and staining and the right microscope, because every day the clam lays down a very clear line, like
Ring.
roots of a tree. With an oyster, it's a little more chalky, but you might say that it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. Oysters can live a long time. They can live 35 plus years. So I brought.
Really?
Kim, check these out. Check these out. I got these from Paul McCormick
Oh yeah.
at Great Guns this week.
That's fun.
These are his grillers. Look at the size of these things.
Yeah, no,
Bill, where is this from?
Great Gun. Out of Santa Mauritius.
Okay.
Well,
Very nice size.
I don't know if he's got anything on me, but
Well, that's the size of my palm. I hear
Tell
you.
me this is not a competition.
well, no, it's not a competition. What's funny about these oysters is that these oysters were on Goose Creek that were supposed to be serviced, but COVID came and they got abandoned for years. I'm getting shells all over.
Incredible.
So I saved these to show you how I would chuck. The oyster stew we're about to make had 4 dozen of these. So it's going to be a big vat of. Let me take you for a little tour. A little tour of what we're going to do with this oyster stew. Did everyone get that algae question wrong? Good. Okay. So here's the thing with what we're going to do. I've done this before on a grill. You could do this on a grill. I'm using my wife's medium-sized pressure cooking pot, because I'm going to fill that. That's going to make like, a 1.5 gallons of stew, of chowder. We're going to make a chowder. This is we're going to thicken it with a roux. We're going to add, here's the oysters. I just shucked these in the garage a couple, an hour ago. And I'll show
How many dozen you using?
how do I what?
How many, what are you starting with? How many?
There's 4 dozen. And I've got some more here because I was going to do a little shucking demo as I'm doing this, but not a lot. And I have those ones there because that's a different part of the demo. So an oyster stew, by the way, would be the oysters, some butter, the butter's over there, some pepper, I got pepper, and that's really about all an oyster stew is. I'm going to do it a little differently because I took the camera away, but I'm going to make the stew, but I'm also going to make a chowder. So whenever I make a stew, I treat right away and I use mushrooms. And I've got a new kitchen quantity, a bowl full of onions, a bowl full of diced yellow potatoes, a bowl full of celery. For the holidays, I'm adding this nice red pepper. That's the flour for the roux. I got some butter. So we're going to make a chowder, and we're going to keep taking the final. So here's what I'm going to do. Part of the point of this, when I make this, oh, there it is.
You're on, you're good.
When I make an oyster stew alone, I use 2 pots. By the end of my oyster stew, there isn't a dirty anything in the kitchen. The kitchen's spotless after making an oyster stew because there's so little to it. This demo,
I'm sure Kim is happy about that.
she don't, but she's happy anyway. This demo, I've got all the bowls. I throw everything. What I do is now I'm gonna put the pot on. I always throw everything on high. I'm always in a hurry for everything. So I got the pot on high. I'm gonna add olive oil. I also, I don't use a recipe and I don't use measuring anything. So I just dump everything. I just go by what I remember. And
What do you cook with, propane out there or gas?
it's propane.
Propane.
Yep. So I got olive oil and that's going to heat up. And as that heats up, we're going to saute the vegetables and just get them out of the way. So I'm going to, let the oil heat up. You get the onions in there. I throw the celery in last. I'll probably throw the red peppers in with the celery because I like everything crunchy. I can't stand it when everything is mush. So that's going to be happening there for a moment while we do another question, because you guys all got the first one miserably wrong. So that's good. I expect everything to be, look, here's the thing with SPAT. Now, here's the thing with SPAT, and it's always been this way. I don't test anybody to show off or anything. It maybe entices you that if you really wanted to wow people at a cocktail party, you could remember a couple things that you could kind of blurt out over your martini.
They're not gonna know if you're right anyhow, so it
Well-
doesn't matter.
Well, so here's one. This question comes up because I just heard it so many freaking times and had to answer it so many times that I threw it on the final. The blue point oyster, Crassostrea virginica, is a different species of oyster from the Louisiana oyster, Crassostrea gigas. True or false?
False.
False.
Everyone's given that a false. Okay,
False.
now, good, because a couple things about the Crassostrea virginica. The eastern oyster, our oyster, Crassostrea virginica, is the only oyster that grows indigenously from Newfoundland to Florida, and probably the Texas Panhandle. But you might get some other around there. You might pick up something like a mangrove oyster. And there are oysters actually. There are mangrove. Oh,
Yeah, it looks like your oil's starting to smoke, Kim.
yeah, here goes the. I added a hood to my wife's thing here. So I got the onions going. I'll turn it down a little bit.
Okay, sauteing the onions.
I'll throw the mushrooms in here because that'll cool it down. You know, this is just about browning the vegetables. This is, I just brown everything. And that way, wait, what happens if I set the smoke alarm off? That's the end of audio.
Again, your onions and mushrooms, that's it at that point?
I'm just going to brown all of the vegetables.
Fine.
The onions cook very quickly. If the mushrooms you don't want to get, it's nice to get them either caramelized.
You don't want to mushy, right?
Yeah, you want to brown everything nice. And now I can go back up on high because that cooled it right down. Too cool. So the thing with the eastern oyster is that the blue point oyster, everybody knows the blue point oyster. It's like this world
True.
phenomenon. And everyone says, are those blue points? Well, if they were harvested from Blue Point, New York, they'd be blue points. And Blue Point, New York, boy, I wasn't around in the heyday of Blue Point, but boy, did they do a great job of promoting something like the oyster and the name brand recognition. It's like
Connection, yes.
like Cracker Jacks,
That was all out of the
Sure.
South Shore too, right?
What's that?
That was out of the South Shore.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Still there.
And see, there are other oysters that are Crassostrea virginica that have gone a long, long way with branding, like Wellfleets, Malpex, Chincoteague. They got famous that way, and now it's all about boutiquing. So Widow's Hole and Oyster Ponds and Founders, and everybody grabs their name, and that's
Sounds better.
and
Yes.
Paul McCormick, who showed his oyster, he grows a great oyster. Great Gun, all right. If that's your name, that's your name. If you're a
What did you just put in the celery?
I just put in the potatoes because the potatoes take, you don't want the potatoes to be raw. The last thing, what I'm gonna do is I'm browning these vegetables as we're doing our final. When they're ready, I'm gonna show you, the oysters don't want to be overcooked, even though I tell you, it doesn't seem to matter because I reheat this thing. What I'll do after I finish cooking this, I'll eat what we eat for dinner when she gets home from yoga. We put the others into the plastic quart containers. They'll make maybe 4 or 5 of them. Leave them outside to cool off, then put them in the refrigerator and eat one a night or one, Hey there,
Great.
are you healing?
Hey there.
You're getting better? You're
I'm
healing?
healing well, thank
Good.
you.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank
We've
you
been
for
thinking of
asking.
you good. We've been
So-
thinking.
So Kim, do you add fresh oysters when you make when you reheat it? Do you make do you add fresh oysters to that?
No. When I reheat it, it's the oyster chowder in its full glory. And what's interesting about it is it just gets better. The next day is always better. And then
For
the
sure.
second day or third day, it's usually all getting close to being all gone. Plus people come by, you give them a thing and I mean, I think a quart of this oyster stew, if my son just sent me, he's in California. He just sent me a menu from a restaurant in San Francisco. It's $52 for a dozen oysters.
No
Yes.
kidding.
And
And in Europe,
East Coast to
Europe,
West
in-
Coast.
well,
in
I mean,
Europe, they're $7, $8 a piece.
well, I
7,
don't-
$8 a piece.
not everywhere, because there
Yes.
are places in France where we went where I didn't like the oysters, but the price was right. I mean, they weren't. It depends on the restaurant. If it's
Yes.
Of course.
if it's a white tablecloth, glove and all the thing, yeah, you can get $7 for an oyster. It's okay.
And if you're not careful, you'll end up with one out of a can. So, got to read the menus carefully.
So I've got my onions, my potatoes, and my mushrooms in here.
No celery? I thought you put the celery in already.
I'm not freaking ready yet. We got to do a question before the celery.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so anyway, what's important about straightening people out about blue points is that on the East Coast, there's only one naturally occurring golden, beautiful oyster, and that's our Crassostra virginica. If you go to the West Coast, they actually have been growing our oyster, which is not indigenous to the West Coast, for many, 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 many years. I didn't even know that they've been growing the Eastern oyster longer than they've been growing the Pacific oyster, Crassostra gigas, which was news to
But
me.
who grows them up at Hamahama? Hamahama, do they grow them up there?
Well, so Hamahama, yeah, I don't know. I do know that what's the
John Finger?
Hog
What's that
Island.
guy John Finger up there, right?
So, okay, Mike, the celery's going in, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And for the holidays, this beautiful red pepper.
Very nice.
Normally, I don't put red pepper, but there's nothing wrong with, if you're gonna make a chowder.
You should
You
make
might-
red and green, a little red
Yeah,
and green.
I was thinking of it,
Okay.
but I didn't think of it that long. Okay.
All right.
So that's almost on its way. And we got another question here. The black line seen on many oysters cultured in New York may be an indication of disease resistance stock from early hatchery breeding practices. What do you think?
False.
How are you?
I
No,
think it's usually,
Red bill.
usually signs of a
Has anyone, has any- oh,
triploid.
look. I love having props. Look at that.
Is that a triploid?
Beautiful.
No, it is not a triploid. This is this year's, that's really fascinating. This oyster right here is this year's oyster. This was born on January 31st, 2024.
It's a year old, like you said. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's almost exactly, it's actually, that's fascinating. It's like 11 months old, this oyster.
I always thought it
And
was
you
sunburn.
grew that out at Cornell?
This was from Tiana. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep, the water is fabulous at Tiana. And look at that black line. So now what's the black line? Now
Sunburn.
we're getting hot over here with the vegetables. So watch what I'm gonna do. This is all of the oysters, 48 oysters,
Hmm. Right,
fr-
right.
and all the liqueur. And I'm going to take a little bit of that liqueur and I'm going to pour it in here.
All right.
Cool things off.
There's the flavor, baby. There's the flavor.
Well, all of that's going in. I mean, that is what makes oyster, the liqueur, the beauty of using those big oysters is there's a lot of liquid. You get a lot of liquid, and the liquid is just crammed with salt. You know that, because
It
there
makes
is
the
no
finished
spice.
product, yes.
There's no spicing this. It's all oyster extrapellial fluid or liqueur. Okay, so now this is brown. It's cooling off. And by the way, hold on, let me show you this. I like this little, I hooked up my little remote camera so you could, I mean, that's just looking beautiful. Right?
Very nice.
Like that.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
And what I like about it is, I mean, you're using one pot. And I don't normally, I just chop. I got a cutting board. I chop on the cutting board. I throw it in the thing. Then it's like, which goes next? Well, which one did you chop next? And that goes in. Now, so as that's doing that, I'm going to do a quick shucking lesson. Oh, let me show you something here. So I got my little arsenal here. I got some.
Wow, look at your selection.
I got my glove. I got that vice grip. I got some nice knives in the sheaths there. And
Yeah, beautiful.
some clam knives, and that's actually a door knocker.
What's that piece there on top? That's
What's that?
beautiful.
What's that? Here's the French. Oops, I got all these.
Some of those look like clam knives.
These are all clam knives because, well, let me show you. So I'm going to take, here's a nice little clam knife. So here's a clam knife. I don't have any clams with me.
But no,
But
those
now
are
here's
the best. Those are the best for side shucking. The clam knives are better for side shucking.
So hold on, I got
They're not sharp enough, Bill.
actually.
No. They don't want to be sharp. They don't want to be that sharp. Trust me. I opened 700 of them last weekend at Celebration with a clam knife.
Beautiful.
700 oysters.
Okay, here we go. I tried this out. Okay, now. That's that 1-year-old oyster. Here's a clam knife. Okay, I choke up on it like that. I hold it like that. I'm not even wearing a glove right now. I have my, well, let's be professional.
All right.
My chainmail glove is actually my wife's.
I'm sorry, I'm not taping this.
That's great. What I was doing when I was shucking all these other ones is I'm going to turn this heat down because I'm blabbing. Okay, that happens. I'll show you when I was I'm going to show you the difference between a tiny oyster. Here's a clam knife. I choke up on it. I go on the side. I do a little wiggle, and then I do a back slice actually. And when I open this up, look at this presentation.
You're beautiful.
I want to show you something really fascinating.
Unbelievable.
This time of year. Look at the green gill. Can you see how green that gill is? The
Yeah.
gill is here. I don't know if that's picking up on your cameras or anything.
It is.
This is almost
No,
like
you can see it.
this is like neon green.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Beautiful.
it's so beautiful that one's not going in our stew. That one was.
There you go.
Okay, so that's a side. So it's a little wiggle. It's a back.
Hey, Mike, mute your microphone because you keep cutting Kim out.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's the little oyster. Now, let me show you, because when you go to shuck a big one, for making, if you have big ones and you're making a stew or something like that, can you go in the side? Actually, you can. The side of that thing. A very green gill.
All right, now you're just showing off. That was
No,
impressive.
no, I'm gonna show you, what's funny is that, so that was the side method of opening. The way
Gorgeous.
I opened, because I had to open 48 of them, I got a little tired at the end. Some of these big ones, like this one is a monster. Okay?
That's my favorite.
Sometimes the easier way of opening it. I saw this little old lady at Tweed's Buffalo Bar. That's all she had. This and actually like a paring knife. She had this and a paring knife, and she would just take the thing and, you know, that's it. That little nip out of here, okay,
Great idea.
is a very safe way. And so now I can take just about any knife. Here's a Chesapeake knife, and I go in the bow. It went right in. I mean, it's just, and then finally adductor muscle.
And you're there. You're there.
So
This one is just.
I had Phil the Clam Man do a party or two for me, and that was his technique.
So
I
now.
learned one from him.
Oyster, not a good presentation because I'm trying to do it well, like whatever.
Hey, Kim, listen, I hate to do this. I have to run. I've got a dinner appointment, but Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I hope I can see this on a loop, because I want to make this.
We'll meet up here, Bill, and we'll finish the chowder in live and in person.
Bill, Happy New Year, Bill.
Thanks.
Everybody, happy holidays, guys. All right, thanks. Be
You
well. God
too,
bless.
you too.
Take care.
You will. You
too,
look
enjoy.
good.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Okay, so that was the side method, the bill method. Everybody kind of knows the hinge method. I got my hinge knife. It's got the upturned bill, and you would put it in the notch. Really work it in the notch, and then pop it. Sometimes the hinge pops off. That's why I never. And then it's always about going over and cutting the adductor muscle.
Turning that,
That actually took it. I don't use this technique. That left some of the shell. I had to take it out. I'm just after the oyster for the stew. It can be hacked
for
up.
sure. And the liquid.
And the liquid. And then what I was gonna show everybody, hold on, put this back, is if you really don't, you want to make a big chowder, but you just don't want to shuck any oysters. You just don't
Put it
want
in
to.
the pot.
So what you can do, and this is doing nicely here, we're ready for our next bit. If you clean this oyster really well, you can just stack them in the pot, empty pot, a little bit of liquid, put a cover on it to generate steam, and they'll steam open, and you can keep the liquid and you can keep all the oysters.
Yes.
The problem I have is it takes me longer to clean them if the pressure washer's off right now. So I'd have to clean them by hand. It takes me longer to clean them than it does to shuck them. So I just shuck. Okay, so now because we're so close and the vegetables are done, I'm gonna go ahead and here's what I do now. Let me show you something. I'll take it over here. Because this is, I mean, this kind of makes sense to me. Here's your oysters in a bowl, nice and newly shot. And what I do is I just hold on. 3. Okay. I'm gonna use the liquid. Gotta get a good view here. I'm gonna use the liquid to wash the oyster. So I go like that.
Sure.
I'm just gonna put them all in. Put the oysters. What I do when I'm cleaning these things, I can feel if there's any shell on there, any residual shell, and I can knock it off as I'm putting the oysters in. if I dumped all of this into the pot, I'm gonna pick up some shell, and I don't want any shell in this. So I'm washing them in the liquid. I'm putting them in, I'm kind of feeling if I left any. Look at how green those gills are. You know, in France, they love the green gill oyster. They have a pond that they can put their oysters in to green up the gills, and they get top dollar for the green. I gotta look
sure.
it up. There's a term for it, and there's a special, now, I don't know if you're noticing how many oysters are going in this thing. So there's the oysters in there, and I'm gonna just combine everything in here. You don't want to cook it too much, but you want it to cook. So that's in there. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let it,
Liquid, strain it.
no, I'm not even gonna strain it. I'm gonna show you. I'm not even gonna strain it. You could strain it.
Of course.
I just decant. Let me put this back. I just decant and I throw, part the shell away. Okay, so that's doing a quick heating up. We're almost done with this, and we're nowhere near done with the final. But the final didn't really matter as much as, I mean, we could do the whole final. Oysters can freeze solid and still live. True or false?
False.
That is false. They can't freeze solid and live, but they can resist the cold remarkably well. They have a built-in antifreeze in their blood that keeps them from freezing solid naturally. But if you put an oyster in the freezer, it's going to freeze. If you take an oyster out in the winter, just out, and it's 20 below, they're going to freeze and they're going to die. If they're submerged every tidal cycle, they're not going to die because that keeps them from freezing
So
solid.
they go dormant?
Very dormant. Very dormant. If it's really cold,
Around what temperature do they go dormant?
I would say for clams, they say it's 10 degrees Celsius. For oysters, it's probably lower. I don't know if we ever get cold enough winters for oysters to ever go too
I
dormant.
would think not.
No,
Who knows?
it's been pretty warm. So that's doing.
Alexa,
Yeah.
Excuse
what's
me.
10 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
What is it? It's like 40, 42, 40. No, it's yeah, it's like
Wow.
low
Alright.
40s. Yeah. I mean,
Celsius is exactly 50 Fahrenheit.
but that actually isn't when clams go dormant. That's when it's recommended to plant that the temperature's 10 degrees so that the clam can still dig into the sediment. So it's probably a lot colder than that they go hibernating. But certainly in a lot of places up north, they hibernate pretty for at least a couple months or something.
Excuse me, Kim.
Yeah.
Welcome, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy. I think about you all. How you
Hello,
doing?
how you doing? I joined late, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So we got
Okay.
we're almost done with the chowder. How about another question? Metamorphosis in shellfish is irreversible and causes significant internal morphological changes, including rapid growth of shell. Who cares? No, I mean, you know why that's there? That question, is that true or false? It's too techy to be false, isn't it? What do you think, Frank? Yeah, I mean, the thing is with metamorphosis, once any creature metamorphoses, it's irreversible. The reason why it's in there is I spent so much time in grad school with these neurotransmitters and chemicals that induce different things. And so when oysters metamorphose, epinephrine dumps into their body and causes all these very rapid changes that you can't turn around. So it's kind of fascinating to think that is part of their makeup. So now I've got that done here. I'm gonna get the pot in view here. I'm going to decant carefully all of the liquid, not all of it. I'm decanting slowly. I'm decanting slowly-ish. And I end up with, hold on, I end up with that. And there's some oyster in there, but there's also, you know, shell and grit, and I don't need that. There's not enough there to worry about. So that goes. And now I know I don't have any shell in my one big chunk of oyster. I'll put that in. Can't a little more.
Love it.
And that's the end of that. Now, there's only one thing left to do now. Now, there's a couple ways you can finish this out.
Great.
It's already starting to look kind of yummy. That red pepper really adds to the look.
Beautiful.
But now look, here's the other thing. So here's the pot. The pot is a little less than half. Now, if I came up to this level here, that fills a crock pot. That's how much I made that served 20 people on the Christmas party. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do one question. This is official. This is business here. The principal reason for, she was right. You know, my wife, as she's leaving, she says, you're going to need glasses to read it. Now I know this thing down cold. I don't even, but I can't see a thing. So the principal reason for employing upweller system is to increase the flow rate of water passing through a volume of shellfish seed. Now,
No idea.
is that true or false?
No idea.
True.
Upweller system, it's true. And you know, the thing is, what this was doing in the final exam is it was going from hatchery, which is cultured algae, that's what you're feeding everything, to nursery, where now you don't have to feed anything anymore. The algae's in the water, but the more you increase the flow rate, the better
Because
your growth is going to be. So that's the upwellers, and that's the whole upweller systems and the nursery systems. And, you know, all of these things SPAT members can learn more about and get involved in using their hands. And it's cyclical because like right now, we're growing the algae and we're starting to condition the shellfish for spawning. Our first spawn will be probably the last day of January. Then we'll do our Valentine's Day spawn. And then we take it from there. But, you know, that's really early and it's right around the corner. I mean, January's literally
yeah.
corner. By the way, I am giving a presentation of SPAT's 25th year at Milford Aquaculture Seminar that I've been going to for 30 plus years. And they gave me the third speakership, which is to me a wicked honor because the first day, everybody that's going to this conference is there. It's packed out. By the second day, it's like the crickets and the locusts are lingering and a couple, you know, diehard pathologists. But so I was deeply honored by that. Anyway, what was I doing? How do we finish this stew out? Is that what I was doing, or I was looking at a question? Oh, I remember. SPAT members can do all this stuff, and it happens cyclically. So January, we're open year round. We're Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Bart's going to oversee a lot of the hatchery work this year because he loves that stuff. Oysters should never be left out of the water for longer than 3 days. True or false?
That's false.
That's very false, and it's a good thing. You know, the hurdle with scallops will always be shelf life. You know, scallops are not very hardy when it comes to shelf life. Oysters, at Cape Cod, they leave them out for months in containers, not just out in the open where they can freeze. They like 40-something degree containers
Right.
for all of January, February, and into March. So they're fine that way. Now,
So what's the right answer? What's the right answer to that question? 3 days is no good.
No, 3 days is fine. In the blazing summer heat,
It's not a
No
good,
good.
it's not a good idea. In the wicked Yukon freezing blizzard,
not a good idea.
it might freeze solid, but I mean, I've opened up oysters that had that had ice crystals in it, and it was pretty frozen. Like I ate it, it was an oystersicle. But if I put it in tepid water for just a couple minutes, it would just defrost, and you see the heart pumping, and so it can handle ice. It just can't handle freezing solid.
So summer, no, but winter, yes.
Summer, be careful about, just use the so hot it could fry an egg on the sidewalk analogy
Right.
with your oyster.
Oh, yes.
Now, here's where I'm heading, right over there to get that.
Get the
bucket.
cream. Get the cream.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not holding back on the caloric or all the criminal stuff that you can make. You can make adjustments to this chowder.
We're doing the non-healthy version.
I do the remarkably unhealthy and extremely tasty version. So here's a
Very good.
stick of butter,
I love it.
salted butter. Here's my saucepan. I'm taking a stick of butter.
Beautiful.
I know. I didn't, you don't have to do this part. As a matter of fact, the easiest way of finishing out this chowder is just add milk to it. Just dump milk in it.
Which is healthier than the cream, yes.
Now you can dump cream in, but now you're going the route of, caloric route, a little. You can use, skim milk. I'm using 2% milk, what I'm gonna do.
Right, very good.
I have heavy cream here. I'm not gonna put heavy cream in. It comes out
Good.
great with heavy
Good.
cream.
Good.
But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a roux, because I want to bring this volume of this chowder up so that you could have it as a party. Keep in mind that all of this stuff that I'm telling you about, you can just throttle everything way, way back. You can make just a bowl of this stuff. And you could skip all the vegetables. The part of what I like is the fact that I use so many oysters in here. It's not going to be overwhelmed by anything else I do. As a matter of fact, the reason why I use mushrooms, even when I'm just making what would be a traditional oyster stew, is the oysters act just like a mushroom when you cook them with oysters. They take in all the oyster liqueur. The texture is almost the same. They almost look the same. So you can take a dozen oysters and a pound of mushrooms, and it's like
You're there.
2 or 3 dozen. So the butter's melting. I'm going to take a cup, a little less, not a heaping cup of all-purpose flour. Normally, I just throw it in there, and I just threw it in there. I got some more oysters. The oysters I shucked, they're going in there. Hopefully, there was no shell. This one somebody forgot to do something with.
Not to go to waste.
By the way, that oyster right there that I ate has been in my refrigerator for about 10 days. It was harvested cold. It was stacked, kind of uniformly, cup side down.
Right on.
It wasn't in this. It was in something that wasn't going to, if it leaked, it wouldn't leak into the refrigerator, just like a metal bowl. But they've been,
Moist towel, a moist towel over it.
I don't even bother. I
Oh, I do.
10
I
days
do.
is 10 days is a little long. I shouldn't have. I'm
No,
taking,
no, so what? You wouldn't go 2 weeks?
yeah, you can go 2 weeks, but you know, why is
Right,
it, I can get them fresh every day. Why do I have it in my
Well,
refrigerator? Here's a
but
whisk. I'm
you have
whisking,
your own thing there, right?
I'm whisking the,
Butter.
I'm whisking the
Mhm.
flour in the butter and cooking that flour. You don't want it, you don't want like
Right.
Frank Zappa, lumpy gravy. For all you Zappa heads out there. Lumpy gravy. Now, the interesting thing about heavy cream, and I should have known this, probably most people know this. Heavy cream, you can boil it, it doesn't curdle. Milk, you can't do that. It will
Right.
curdle. So
Yes.
I am using milk, so I'm gonna keep it, I'm gonna whisk it. I got 4 cups of milk here. I don't even, you know what? I should have got,
You said 2%, right? 2%?
it is 2%. It can be all over the place.
Oh, you're dripping a little.
I did, but I'm good at cleaning my own kitchen. So I got that in there. I should have used the bigger saucepan. But
Yes.
so I'm gonna whisk it up until it's cooked. It's interesting how a roux works, because when I probably did that all wrong, but it always works out. It's just, maybe this is like what is it, Neanderthal cooking style. You know, I'm pretty primitive. When I did this on the grill, I think I think I used like a wooden stick. I didn't have anything with me. I had a pot and a pan and a something, and it was so primitive. I loved it. You might as well have been just dropped out of a tree with a bunch of oysters and you know what? You know what it is to be a calcium anthropologist, right? You know that?
No.
The study of milkmen.
Okay.
That's the Stephen. That's not my own. Study of milkman. So
Yeah.
the roux will thicken up, and then basically you add the roux
Later.
to this, and then if it gets too thick, you can add a little bit more liquid to make it the consistency you want. But if you don't make a roux, it'll never be as thick as you want.
Right.
It just, you can't thicken it up enough
Yes.
without a roux. And a roux is such a simple
Yes.
thing. And it won't overpower, it'll actually dilute the amount of salt that's in this chowder, because all of that liquid that's in there is basically salt water. I mean, it's too strong right now. It needs to be.
But you didn't add any salt.
No, but the oyster is just, it lives in salt. It's 20.
Salt, yes.
So do we want to do any more? Let's see what we got here.
Go ahead.
Dermo,
One
here's
more.
pathology. So dermo, Perkensis marinus is a rare oyster disease that only affects oysters in the Chesapeake Bay.
False.
That's false. Yeah,
False.
there's a good possibility that every oyster on Long Island it certainly has the potential to have dermo,
Right.
but it's manageable, and maybe it's diminished. Like if you open up an oyster
Right.
and it looks, yes, 5-second rule. It's my own kitchen. If it looks thin and
Move the camera. Move the camera.
hold on. So this oyster
Okay.
here is not thin and water. Does it have dermo? I don't know. It might. You'd have to do the pathology to see if it had dermo. If it does have dermo, it certainly doesn't matter, because this oyster is actually remarkably plump and gorgeous. And the fact that it's 11 months old, I mean, this is an oyster, that, and the presentation isn't so good. I kind of hacked it up because I'm doing this, but,
It looks lovely.
it tastes, it's just a great oyster. Now, I opened up when I was shucking that 4 dozen for this chowder. Don't forget to keep, don't
To
let,
move it,
don't let it curdle.
mix it.
It's coming. It needs still to be heated up. It thickens up. You think that you've got it all, like all the lumps out and whatnot, but you got to really get it so that it feels like it's thickening up, and then you add it to.
You're lucky.
I'll dispatch this.
Love it.
It's absolutely astounding how good this
Okay.
time of year oysters are.
Okay.
But when I was shucking the 4 dozen, I came across one that I would say, when I opened it and I looked at it, I said, wow, that's got to be Dermo, because it just was so emaciated. It could have been other things. You can't tell if it's got Dermo at any level unless you do the pathology, but
No liquid, no liquid.
it just very thin, very little. Just I should have saved it, but it was so evil looking. I just threw it in the pile.
When you're in doubt, yes, throw it
No.
out.
Well, what's interesting is that the oysters at Celebration, a lot of them looked thinner than others. They all tasted really good, but there were some that were particularly thick and plump, and some that weren't. So it depends on, a lot of things. But Dermo can be one of them. In the Chesapeake, you have Dermo and MSX, and these places never get a hard winter, so they really are under a lot of pressure, disease pressure, and they've been battling it for a long time. We have Dermo. We don't have what's called MSX. It used to be called multinucleated spheroid unknown. Now it's Haplosporidium nelsoni, which both of them are parasites. And here we go. So, as this thing starts to get you, for all of you that have never made a roux, I guess everybody's probably made a roux, but now it's thickening up nicely. It's not boiling, but I gotta get my camera angle right.
Looks like a good room.
Nice. It's getting
Not
thicker.
lumpy,
Here it goes.
not lumpy at all.
It's starting to stick to the side here a little bit. It's getting nice and thick. So I'm going to turn the heat down on that. And I'm going to,
Edit.
yeah, there it is. So
Fuck. Beautiful.
basically, let me take my glove off. Primary food source for shellfish is unicellular microalgae, regardless of the size or life stage of the animal. True or false?
True. No idea.
That is true. And there it is. Wow, true. That's their primary diet. Maybe they can eat other things, but here's this soup.
Oh, that's just a dozen.
Nice and, I'm getting my camera all foggy. That's all done. Let's get it in focus. And now, how do I do this? So you can see it? I'll just put it here. I'm going to put the roux in, and I'll give you a view of what it looks like when it's all made up, and we'll bring the level where we want it. So here's the roux.
Wow.
And it's definitely gotten, now it's like pudding. You want it to be, let me see if I can.
Yes,
It's like pudding almost.
yes.
It's nice and thick, because obviously it's going into a much thinner base there.
It would come out perfect.
All of that out, and that's just butter and flour, that's a roux. And see, now, if I wasn't attending to everybody, all of these dishes and everything would already be washed and being dried.
Right.
You know, it's so simple. Now watch, let me show you.
Fuck. It's gorgeous.
Now look at this.
How do we get a taste of this?
Well, you know, it's funny that you should say that because, hold on, there's only one other ingredient. And I won't bore you with this because, is cracked pepper.
Oh, very nice. Yes, very needed.
What I'm gonna do
very
is,
needed.
I'm not gonna put it all in because you can actually put, you know, quite a bit of pepper in there, but even when you're serving it in the bowl, if you do it like that, so that
Looks great.
it's beautiful. And now I'm gonna turn the heat off. And here comes the, now, what I can do is I can determine, see, for me, right now, that's it,
Great.
I'm done. And again, I have about a gallon, I'd say. I'd say that if I were serving this as a appetizer, I could definitely get, 20 of these size bowls out of it.
Very nice.
So,
Looks lovely.
so that's that, and I will, just for the sake of argument, I'll test it.
All right.
Now, here's the thing. When you make this, and you're doing your first taste, you taste it and it's like, oh my God. And it's always that way. It's like, I can't believe it. And the best thing about it is, if you're growing your own oyster, and you don't need giant oysters, by the way, it probably comes out, if you use enough oysters of the little ones, you won't get that big, huge vat of them, even with 4 dozen if you're using these, because the big oysters were like 2. So it'd be more like,
Great.
I think what I did for the Christmas party, I might have used more like 6 dozen. So I would add maybe 2 dozen of the small ones, 4 dozen.
And then the bigger ones. Nice. Very nice.
But it was, I mean, that's chock-a-block with oysters. Every bite is like an oyster or 2. So it doesn't have to be that intense. But it, you know, and a dozen oysters done correctly, you can really bring it pretty far out, and so that you can have maybe serve 4 with a dozen even smallish oysters if you
Sure.
especially the mushrooms. You know, the mushrooms are the greatest trick in the world. How are we doing? And we got 608. That was the that's the oyster stew lesson. It's
Tim, I think you did great. I enjoyed this immensely.
Well,
immensely.
the thing is, here's what I suggest. At some point, grab a dozen oysters, make a couple bowls of this, and you'll see that, you know, I stretched this out, but when I went to go make that Christmas stew, I made it so early, it took me like 20 minutes and I was done. And so I had to hang out for like 4 hours with it because I made it so early. I got all torqued up.
It's an easy recipe.
Very easy.
Very easy.
Now, I'm going to do this last true false, and then I'm going to make everybody study up the multiple guess, and we can do that. We can do that remotely, because I don't want to bore anybody anymore with a final exam, unless you want to do it.
You're not boring anybody.
All right, we'll whip through it then. I should sit here and eat oyster stew and make you salivate while I just whip through the rest of this. But
but tomorrow I am going to Whole Food. They have They just opened up a new Whole Food here in Boynton Beach, Florida. And I'm going to order a dozen or 2 dozen oysters,
And
a
give it a,
dollar a piece, and they open them up.
oh, there you go.
Unreal.
Okay, so
Unreal.
Greenport and Peconic Bay once had a prolific natural oyster reef, which was harvested at their peak at the turn of the century.
False.
Yes.
That's false.
Oh.
The coolest thing about Greenport and Peconic Bay was it was aquaculture then. In 1900, when Greenport was just flying with oysters, it's because they were importing the seed from seed beds and dumping them in the bay. And so that was aquaculture. That was very progressive at the time. And I do a history, I'll do a history talk on the next year, this coming year. I'll revisit the history of oysters in New York. It's pretty cool. It's amazing. It's
Oh,
in
yeah.
backyard was an amazing epicenter for oysters in 19. So for the multiple guests, we'll just go through it. I always kid people about the Seston flux equation. You know, people want to learn all kinds of things about aquaculture and shellfish and these, and you can learn it at any level. I learned it in grad school. I kept it going throughout my life. I can talk with professors and scientists about this stuff, or I can talk to third graders about this stuff. So I always like the Seston flux equation because it sounded so technical and it's such a brilliantly simple concept that I always liked it. And it states it in brackets A times F equals G. And what does that stand for? And I made up a bunch of funny things, maybe to me funny, but what it states is that the algae concentration in the water times the flow rate equals growth. And that it's a very broad term, and there are ways of looking at it and calibrating things and whatnot. But what it's basically saying is that algae and flow are the two critical elements for growth in shellfish. So you can manipulate that in different ways. In the hatchery, we manipulate algae. In the nursery, we manipulate flow. And it's fascinating because it works, and you can really look at it. It's kind of like watching fast growing grass grow with your lawnmower. You know, oysters can really be a dynamic thing. Tiana opened up some eyes for me because I'd never seen a 3-inch, 10-month-old oyster that was busting out of the shell before I went there. It's because the flow rate in the algae is spectacular. So
Good stuff.
that's
Is
that.
the growth better in Tiana than by us in Southold?
Oh,
You
absolutely.
betcha.
We did a study of one of the growers.
ahead.
Anna's son did the study, and it there was almost no comparison. But we've also grown really. It depends. We have to look at the Marine Center. Just within the areas of the Marine Center, there's different growth in the back canal and the front canal. So it's all about the flow.
Yes,
It's about other things too. I mean, temperature and oxygen. There's a lot
It's more
of
the flow. It's more the flow. It's more the flow.
flow helps a lot of the other causes. Flow, here's what I say, and this is very true at Goose Creek. Flow forgives a lot of sins with so the Eastern oyster is or has which? Maximum 2-year lifespan? No. Muscular foot for movement? No, that's a clam. Maximum 2-year lifespan, that's a scallop. Is a protandric hermaphrodite. That's true. It means that all oysters are first male, and then they can
convert.
They can even out over time. A true nacre layer. Oysters do not have a true nacre layer, and that's why they can't make a pearl. Our hard shell clam, the northern quahog, has a true nacre layer and can make a pearl. But our oyster,
Can we add some sand to
No.
make a pearl?
No, I just said
It's a-
no,
It's
because
a totally different species.
it's because in order to make a pearl, what a pearl is a laminate of the nacre layer, the mother of pearl layer, over some sort of irritant. It's trying to coat the irritant to keep it from irritating, and it rolls it around on with its nacre layer, and it laminates it with mother of pearl. That's what a pearl is. And
So excuse me, when a member of our group says they found a pearl, we
yeah,
can't believe that.
what they found a lot of times when you're shucking an oyster, you'll find this big ugly nodule, and that can kind of look like a pearl, but you can
But it's not.
it's not a
Okay.
pearl. When you find a
Okay.
pearl in a clam, which I have done, it looks like a pearl, and you can find actually quite a beautiful pearl in a
Excuse
clam.
me, our pearls, you found a pearl?
Our
oysters?
In our clams. Jesus, Mike, come on, pay attention, or I'm going to give you a grade on this thing. Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
teasing.
in a clam, you found a pearl.
Clams I found numerous, not numerous, but at least 3 or 4 pearls in my lifetime in our clam. Found throughout the east coast of the United States. True. Stops growing south of the Carolinas, obviously false, because we get them there. Okay. Which of the following are predators? Now, this is just to get people familiar with when they say, oh, I've got all this weird kind of like rubbery orange stuff all over my oyster. Is it eating my oyster?
Yes.
Those sea grapes. Oh, I got these jelly looking round things and they're eating my oysters. Well, there's predators that eat oysters, and then there's fouling organisms. So which are predators? Oyster toadfish. Oyster toadfish actually eat the crabs oyster toadfish are beneficial to oyster reefs, because oyster toadfish don't eat oysters, but they live amongst oysters because they eat all the stuff they want to eat the oyster. The oyster drill is a little snail that absolutely is a predator of oysters, and a little tiny oyster drill can eat a giant oyster because it just drills, it rasps a hole in the shell like a Dremel, and then injects its digestive fluids and eats the oyster that way.
And it forces it open.
No, it does not need to force it open. It liquefies it and it sucks it out that way. The one is coming up that opens it. Boring sponge is not a predator. It lives within the layers of the shell, but it's not after the oyster. It's after the calcium. So it's not a predator. It is a fowler. Sea squirt's a fowler. Oyster catcher is a bird that is a predator of oysters. It's called an oyster catcher because it eats oysters. It's a beautiful bird. You can't, that's one predator I wouldn't get rid of. Club tunicate is not a predator, it's a fowler. Mud crab, almost all, mud crab is a predator. Green crab, Asian shore crab, even a spider crab, but for smaller stuff, are all predators. Blue crab, big time. Calico crab, lots of crabs out there. How about a pea crab? The pea crab isn't a predator. It lives within the oyster its whole life. It's a commensal symbiosis. So that's not a knobbed whelk. The whelks are probably one of the most voracious predators of shellfish. Redbeard sponge is not a predator. Grass shrimp is not a predator or a fowler for that matter. And filamentous algae is not a predator. Okay. Which ones are fouling? The opposite. So toadfish isn't a fowler. Oyster drill's not a fowler. Boring sponge is a fowler. Sea squirt's definitely your worst fowler. You can never seem to get rid of those stupid things. Club tunicates have gotten out of control. They look like chicken legs when they get big. And they're a tunic. All these tunicates are wicked fowlers. Redbeard sponge, it can be a fowler. It's not really a fowler. Grass shrimp, filamentous algae, if it's thick enough and it's all over your gear, it's fouling your gear. So it could be a fowler. And then which of the following can affect shellfish growth? Algae concentration, we already said, absolutely. It's a big deal. Sexual dimorphism not that I know of. So it's always a trick question with little kids. You hold up that big oyster and the little oyster. Which one's the male? Which one's the female? They always pick
Wrong.
except for all the Me Too movement, little girls always pick the big one as being the female. So that's that's what I would do. You know, you don't want to conform to.
Well, yeah, you know, with birds, the prettier one is the male.
Yeah, well, that's like you.
Okay, same.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
sure.
you. Flow rate of the water, we said yes. Shell color, no. You know, the funny thing about shell color is that if you're doing aquaculture and you're selecting your fast growers and you bred in a color morph, then shell color could actually indicate a potential for growth, but otherwise it shouldn't make a difference. Genetics, absolutely. Like me, I'm a runt, but stocking density in aquaculture gear, I would say absolutely. Stock market prices, everything's affected by stock. Water temperature, absolutely, as we know, because in the winter they don't grow. And political, I didn't see this at the bottom of this thing. I stopped listening to news. I want nothing to do with anything anymore. Just SPAT, just my SPAT community where I'm at inner peace constantly. And that's where I'm going to live for a while. Okay. And what does SPAT stand for?
Amen.
So SPAT started out as Suffolk Project and Aquaculture Training. It shifted to Suffolk Project and Aquaculture Training. We did open up a new SPAT's online store with a new logo that we're fooling around with. That's all Darcy's work, and she did a great job. I don't think I can totally give up the old SPAT.
No.
We'll keep it's just
Fairly
to
my
keep people
favorite.
happy. You know, nobody was really nobody wanted to deal too much with swag, and this new store takes care of everything. So we're going to look at it. We'll see how that goes.
But it's still a scallop.
No, it's an oyster logo on the store. So go check
very
the
nice,
store.
very
Go-
smart,
go-
very good.
Yeah, go check out the store. And there's always Mike's oyster shirts and stuff that he makes too. So happy holidays. If anyone
And
needs
you
to
too.
reach out, I'm at home.
Merry
I'm
Christmas.
6 miles away from the Marine, 6 minutes away. I don't even think it's 6. If it's 6 miles away, then I'm driving at 60 miles.
Probably
an hour.
both.
Wait a minute. I don't think I am. So I am around. I like to pop in and see how it's going. I had a question for Frank.
What's that?
It turns out, I don't know if were seriously interested in that boat.
Yeah.
I thought it came with a trailer and it doesn't. I went to pull the boat yesterday and the trailer got a flat as we were pulling it. So I put it back. I got the tire being fixed. We're going to pull it out, but just keep that in mind. If you want it, we would maybe think of getting a trailer for it.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Boat
I'll
fly.
see you tomorrow.
We could do that.
Tim, you made my day.
Oh,
I-
glad. I'm
This
like
was great.
I'm
I'm
like
shocked.
the Clint
Excuse me,
Eastwood.
excuse
I'm
me.
the Clint
I'm
Eastwood
shocked that
of
I'm
SPAT.
shocked that we didn't have a big group. How can that be? There's 300 members.
No, because we're recording it. Nobody, I wouldn't come. I'm like, that one about I wouldn't join a club that would have me for a member. No, people can watch it. It's fine. I
Yeah.
would have done it. I would have done it alone because it was interesting to set up in
You made my
Could you see
day.
everything? Could you see everything kind of being made? It was.
Yes,
Good
yes.
job.
Well, we'll
Good job.
see how it comes out. And everybody enjoy their holidays. And if you need anything, you know how to get me.
Thank you, thank
Okay,
you,
Merry
thank you.
Christmas.
Good, you
Good.
too.
Oh, I see you're back. Andy,
Okay?
Andy.
Yep.
Andy.
Mike, I'll give you a call. Yep.
Oh, good, please, I'd love to talk to you.